Now, as many of you may know, I covered a little film on this channel by the name of Menace II Society. Now, I view this as one of the most important films of all time, and also one of the best films of all time, especially within the hood subgenre of movies. I love the movie for its brutal, honest, and heartbreaking portrayal of what goes on for some who live in these neighborhoods. But more importantly, it makes you ask questions about the social conditions a lot of minorities face that play a role in the way they navigate through society. And while Menace II Society is such a gripping tale, there's only one film I can truly say holds the crown for best hood movie of all time. Now, it shouldn't be much of a surprise given the title of this video, so without wasting any more time, let's just jump right on into why Boyz In The Hood is the greatest hood film of all time. So in order to make this interesting and easy to comprehend for myself, and hopefully you all as well, I'm going to explain my reasoning by using characters from the film. There are many reasons why this movie is great, and each of these characters have something to do with it. The first character I would like to bring to the table is none other than Furious Styles. So I want to ask you all a question. If you've seen Menace II Society, or even Paid in Full or Belly, you may notice that there's many different kinds of characters, but there's one specific type of character you may notice is missing from the majority of these films, and that is a productive and positive black male figure. To be more accurate, a productive and positive black father. Many hood movies leave us asking, where are the fathers? And while Boyz In The Hood understands many individuals within the hood, or in general, may grow up without a father, but it also recognizes that some actually do. And I think this is important because it shows that not all black fathers are absent from the home for one reason or another. Furious is also an intelligent and hardworking individual who also understands the hood, but more importantly, the construction and components that help influence the negativity within the hood. And it's this understanding that leads to some of the most quotable movie moments in film history, such as,
hey man, I don't know about all this Furious. I was walking around motherfucking Compton and all, man.
Rick, it's the 90s. Can't afford to be afraid of our own people anymore, man.
or even like this.
Why is it that there's a gun shop on almost every corner in this community?
Why?
Tell you why. For the same reason that there's a liquor store on almost every corner in the black community. Why? They want us to kill ourselves.
And while this is great, perhaps the greatest quality Furious possesses is his ability to both be there and care for his son. One of my favorite moments in the film comes fairly early on, and that's when Furious simply agrees to have his son come and live with him. Now, while this may not seem like a big deal to many, this was an important moment in the film. Not just because it sets up the story, but because it shows what a lot of black men do every day, and that's take care of their responsibilities, specifically their kids. More importantly, it showed audiences around the world who may buy into those negative stereotypes surrounding black men being fathers that they do take care of their responsibilities. And the film doesn't stray away from this. We see Furious deal with his son Trey on numerous occasions, from simply scolding him to more serious matters where he could yell at Trey, but he simply opts to embrace his son and hug him because he understands in that moment being tough or dominant isn't always the best way to get through to someone. It showed that black men could console and be emotional with their children in times of need. And if you ask me, for these kinds of films, that type of representation was thoroughly needed at the time. Furious represents the father figures in the hood who often don't get a lot of credit, especially in hood films, because they aren't gangsta enough or adhering to some stereotype. yet still manages to be just as masculine, if not more so, than those who do display the more harmful street etiquette. Furious is such a monumental character, not just in the movie, but in cinema in general, because of the way his character subverts the stereotypes and expectations society has placed on black men. So it's kind of shocking when we talk about movies' greatest characters, we rarely hear Furious's name. Hood films oftentimes examine the consequences associated with the street life. And despite Boyz in the Hood having a main character like Trey, the film doesn't shy away from exploring the more disheartening and tragic aspects. And while I love the fact that the film doesn't entirely focus on this for its entire runtime, the film is without a doubt still heartbreaking. And while movies like Menace II Society do hit hard, especially towards the end, I imagine many of us adults realize that's part of the game Kane was playing. He lived recklessly, and unfortunately, it all caught up with him in the end. Boyz in the Hood takes a different route by having its most devastating scene feature one of the more straight-edged characters in the entire film, in Trey's friend Ricky. Ricky was the character who we were all rooting for, even more so than Trey. He's the one who had the best chance to make it out of the hood and was genuinely a good kid. Now, I keep saying kids like these dudes weren't 37 at the time of filming, but that's besides the point. Nonetheless, Ricky was the exact opposite of his brother Doughboy, someone who stayed out of the streets, did well in school, and just wanted the best for himself and his family. He and Trey end up getting caught up by some rivals, and unfortunately Ricky is shot dead in the back of an alley, culminating in what I believe to be one of the most memorable and heartbreaking scenes in a movie ever. But what does this death mean? Why Ricky? I believe this was director John Singleton's way of showing that the hood is so relentless, and despite not everyone being a gangster in the hood or living the street life, you can still become a casualty just based on who you're associated with. Doughboy, I feel, aligns more with the reckless types we're used to seeing in hood movies, and I do believe he is a character that thought maybe he'd even die one day due to some gang-related activities, but he obviously didn't think his actions would potentially get his brother killed. And that, in a nutshell, is essentially life in the hood for you. Ricky represents hope, and Doughboy represents the cycle. Two key components you see in most hood movies, but also in real life. Anyone who's lived in neighborhoods where there are gangs has either seen or knows someone who's been made a victim as a result of someone else's actions, or simply just because of who they're associated with, which then leads to the cycle of retaliation and ultimately more heartbreak. And Boyz in the Hood manages to capture this heartbreak in one of the most realistic and brutal manners possible. So this is the last character I want us to take a look at today, and in my opinion, it's the main character of the movie. Trey and the concept of his character, in my opinion, is what takes Boyz in the Hood from being one of the best hood movies to the best hood movie. In Menace II Society, we follow Kane, and we do root for him, but at the end of the film, we ultimately understand why he's murdered. Despite being our protagonist, Kane is very much a product of the hood and never really seriously thinks about his actions until it's too late. This is why Menace II Society is so powerful, because it shows the consequences of living life of crime can have. Boyz in the Hood also shows the consequences associated with this lifestyle, such as in the previously mentioned deaths of Ricky and later on his brother Doughboy. But where it differs from Menace II Society can be seen through none other than our protagonist Trey. He's an ordinary kid, and in my opinion, he's even kind of corny. But Trey's character is so important for so many reasons, but I'll boil it down to two. The first one being, he offers us the glimpse in the kids who grow up in the hood who aren't really involved in street or gang life. Contrary to popular belief, not everyone who grows up in the hood is a gangster, and I thought it was a great decision by John Singleton to showcase this through our protagonist. The second reason Trey is important is that while the film makes every effort to show us that while Trey is actually a pretty straight-edged individual, he too was and could have been subjected to the harsh consequences due to his association with the likes of Doughboy and others he's seen hanging out with throughout the film. And for even as innocent as he was, he could have been sucked into that life rather easily, probably even before he even knew it was happening. And I think this hit hard for me, especially because I was Trey. I wasn't a gangster or even a true street dude, but I knew them, and I was close to them, and at times I even walked the same paths with them, not fully aware of where they were leading to. I've been the one in the car going somewhere I probably shouldn't have been going, and like Trey did, in probably the most pivotal scene in the film, I decided to get out of the car. Now, while it may sound like I'm judging those I was with or those Trey was with when seeking retaliation for Ricky's death, I'm not. I, like I imagine Trey did, judged myself and made a choice. And I think that's ultimately why Boyz N The Hood is so good. It shows the outcomes of our choices made, both negative and positive. Trey, like his father, and Ricky, subvert many stereotypes associated with black men in the hood, but Trey is also able to overcome one of the film's most important themes, which is temptation. Not just the temptation of respect or money or the women that may come from the street life, but the temptation of revenge and violence. Trey, unlike Ricky, didn't have a sports scholarship or a kid to look to for inspiration to do right. He simply avoids the temptation by making a decision for himself. And it's that choice, in that split second, that probably saves his life, just like it was that choice in that split second decision that probably saved mine. So I know I did it a lot in this video, but if I'm being honest, I kinda hate comparing Boyz N The Hood to Menace II Society, because they're both ultimately really great films, and they even attempt to say a lot of the same things. Menace shows the effects the hood may have, such as creating this cycle of jail, violence, and bad decisions, but also forces us to ask why this cycle exists in the first place. Why do these hoods exist? They can't just be stuck in this cycle and making these decisions for no reason, right? While Boyz N The Hood does the same thing, it also attempts to offer an explanation as to why and how the hoods are created and what they are designed to do. They're designed to create this cycle of despair and heartbreak. But Boyz N The Hood most importantly shows that the very cycle designed to break us can be broken itself. This is a movie that hits every beat you want it to in a hood drama, while still managing to have its moments of levity and fun. The performances, while not flawless, are still great, especially in terms of realness, relatability, and conveying emotion. John Singleton is an extraordinary writer, and while he's since passed away, his work is classic, and Boyz N The Hood, in my opinion, is his magnum opus. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and for that, it gets a 9 out of 10 from me. As always, I appreciate all of you guys for the continued support. I love to see the channel growing, man, for real. During my mini hiatus, I hit over 2,500 subscribers, and I know that may not seem like a lot to a lot of you, but that means the world to me. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and joining the family. I have a lot in store for you guys in 2023, and I'm excited to get to it. Let me know in the comments how you feel about Boyz N The Hood. Where does it rank amongst your favorite hood movies, or just movies in general? What would you like to see me cover next? Anyways, you guys, be safe out there, and I'll catch you all soon.